that was happening that you'll hear more about today, I believe, from Mr. Nathan, regarding schools not allowing students to use high school technology while they are also taking college courses. And we think that obviously you're a high school student, you also are taking college courses, you should be able to do that as well. And then lastly, the bill had something to do with graduation incentives for our charter schools. But I just, again, want to thank you so much for your involvement in Minnesota's Youth Council. These experiences are incredibly important and helpful, not just for you, but they bring great encouragement to people like me and folks all across the state when we see young youth like you that are involved, making a difference, making your voice heard, and I would say preparing to be leaders. I think we'll see some of you at some of these elected seats in the future, I hope. So I gave you just a brief rundown of the bill today. Now I'd like to turn it over to the live boots on the ground, Mr. Marcus and Mr. Nathan.
Okay, well, thank you, Senator Nelson, for that. My name is Greg Marcus. I work with Senator Nelson, I'm a staff person for hers. She made reference to the bill, Senate File 570, that she's speaking about as introduced. I also got another version of that same bill, as you're probably aware. Legislation that's introduced, people express opinions about it, concerns, things that they like. Ultimately, it evolves. So Senate File 570, as you hold it, is no longer existing the way that it does in paper. We've got another version of it that subsequently was sent to another committee and so on and so forth. So if you desire to speak about how that changes, we can maybe do that later on. But what I'd like to do at this point is to introduce to you one of the historic advocates for education choice in the state of Minnesota, somebody that I've known for probably 20 years. Somebody who, if you go back farther than that, was instrumental in the creation of the idea of charter schools. It may seem strange to you that almost like the existence of the internet, that there would be a time where something didn't exist. But the fact of the matter is, charter schools began here in the state of Minnesota, as you probably already know. But the fact that you have speaking to you here on not a charter school issue, but on a school choice issue nevertheless, Mr. Nathan, who is one of the prime thinkers behind it those number of decades ago. It's a pleasure to introduce him, and I hope that you'll enjoy what he has to say.
Hi.
Welcome, Joey.
Could we go around 30 seconds and just say what community you're from, please? Community. Like?
Oh, Blake.
Blake, okay.
Park Center, Brooklyn Park. Camille High School, Rochester. St. Paul Central High School. Roseville.
Northfield.
Rochester Central High School. Roseville High School. Rochester Century High School.
Lee School. Mora. Northfield. Andover.
Greenwood High School. Greenwood High School in Colorado. Forest Lake. Cordova. GNS High School, and I'm also a PSEO student at Somerville full-time.
I'm a senior high, and then I'm a full-time PSEO for Northwestern.
I'm North High School, North St. Paul, part-time PSEO, University of Minnesota Morris.
Stillwater Area High School.
This is ours.
Minneapolis.
Breck.
Bemidji, but I go to Voyagers Expeditionary.
Okay, great. So, Senator Nelson, did you hear where those folks are from?
No, I'm afraid the mics were not very good, but it sounded a little like maybe they're from, hopefully, a good broad cross-section of the state.
Yes, I heard Mora, a number from the Twin Cities, Breck, Northfield, Minnesota Transitions, Andover, a number of people from all over the state. I just wanted, it's always helpful to know who's in the room. So how many of you, and I include the younger people back here, how many of you have taken a course in high school, whether PSEO or AP or IB or college in the schools? How many of you have taken a course where you earn college credit? So about three quarters of the people are raising their hands. including Mr. Gould. Our organization is called Center for School Change, and we have helped over the last 32 years people such as yourselves to earn college credit while they're in high school. Can one or two of you, I don't care whether you did PSEO or AP or college and schools, can one or two of you say why you think this is a good idea, please? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Well, I've been earning college credit for 3 years, and when I graduate, I'm graduating with 25 credits as I'm moving to college, and so it's really nice because I plan on double majoring, and with my 25 credits, I can hopefully double major and graduate in 4 years of college, so it's really helpful. And I don't have to pay for any of it or any of my textbooks. So, because like my last textbooks was like 3 months and $220.
Wonderful. And which high school?
I go to Anoka and I take classes at Anoka Community College.
Wonderful. Maybe now, Senator Nelson, did you hear that?
You know, it's a little murky, so
Okay.
I did not get to understand it all.
Okay. Well, it was. This is a person from Anoka High School who has been earning college credit for 3 years. And is going to graduate and likes it because it's going to allow her to double major and earn a lot of free college credit. Is that a good summary?
That's terrific.
Okay,
That is
one or two others. Yes?
I've been doing PSEO for 3 years, and I will graduate with 30 plus credits through PSEO and AP. So next year when I go in, I'll go in as a sophomore, not a freshman, so at least $23,000, well, or more, like I guess it depends on where you go, but that's a full year of school.
And what high school are you at?
Winona Senior High.
This is a person from Winona Senior High who's going to save $23,000. Over the last 32 years, these opportunities would not exist without people your age. The law, the PSEO law was passed in 1932. Sorry, not quite that old. 32 years ago, 1985. And in 1986, some people tried to repeal it. And we can talk about that if you're particularly interested. And over the years, people have tried to repeal PSEO from time to time. They've tried to restrict it. We've been able to expand it. So one of you said that you've been doing PSEO for 3 years. We expanded it several years ago to include 10th graders taking career tech. The most important message that I can share with you today is that you and your brothers and sisters are critical to this kind of thing happening. Senator Nelson, a couple of years ago, worked with a Democrat to get millions of additional dollars to help college and schools. We work with Minnesota Rural Education Association, which is also represented here in the room today, to get millions of dollars to help expand college and schools courses. These are all courses that help, as several of you have said, save thousands of dollars, and it makes you more likely not only that you will graduate from high school, but that you will graduate from a 1 or a 2 or a 4-year program. And Minnesota has set a goal of trying to have at least 70% of its students ages 25 to 44 attaining a degree or a certificate, because we urgently need you to have some kind of education beyond high school. It doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. So I'm going to turn it back to Senator Nelson and to Greg and to others who may want to comment. But we will be asking if any of you want to help do this, because there are some controversies this year. And Greg's going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that happened in the bill. And next week, the people representing the Minnesota House and representing the Minnesota Senate will get together. There are high school students who sat at this table and high school students who sat across the streets at the state office building and testified this year to help make these bills happen. Your involvement is not just valuable, it is critical. That's really the most important thing I can say. If you're interested in learning more about the history of AP, IB, college in the schools, or PSEO, I'll give you a website. It's centerforschoolchange.org, www.centerforschoolchange.org, and I'll give you my email. If any of you want to help out in this campaign this year or next year, we would love it. My email is joe, J-O-E, at centerforschoolchange.org, centerforschoolchange.org. And one of the things we think is important is for you to hear various perspectives. There are people who agree on some things and disagree on some things, so we can talk a little about that. And there's a representative who has person in the room who has somewhat different perspectives. And I think it's great to hear from different perspectives. We don't want you to just say, this is the way to go. We want you to hear different perspectives and make up your own mind. But I do want to say lastly, before we hear from others and back to Mr. Marcus, that the country needs you. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. What I do care is if you're indifferent. We make progress in this country when people your age get involved, work with people like Senator Nelson, work with people in the legislature. It doesn't matter which party, we urgently need you. And it's important for you to know that you do have an impact. We have changed the country. Minnesota has changed the way people talk about education, in part because people like you have come to the legislature and shared your experiences.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Folks, I'm looking at the agenda that was shared with Senator Nelson's office, and I see under some of your key information, you're estimating approximately 30 minutes for the presentation of the bill and to receive questions from you, the members. So you've heard some things about the bill in one version of its introduction, and I want to just ask the question of whomever could speak best to it. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to ask questions at this point, or do you want to talk a little bit about how the bill has evolved? Senator Nelson spoke to you about Senate File 570, Senate File 570 was introduced. Some of you are now in possession of another version of Senate File 570 that has in the top right-hand corner circled first engrossment. That means it's a different version. So we want to throw it open to you. If you have questions at this point that you'd like to pursue, we'll certainly do those. If, on the other hand, you want to talk about the bills and how they change, we can do that too. Can somebody give me an opinion?
Do you maybe want to talk for a few short moments about how the bills are different, and then we can open up for questions?
Okay, sure. All right, so many of you have two versions of the bill now, and others will be probably getting it as time passes and we get that stack of paper passed. But as I mentioned, there's the bill is introduced, Senate File 570, top right-hand corner, it says it as introduced, and then a second version, which in the top right-hand corner says first engrossment. The difference is, as introduced, is the bill as it was initially first sent to the Senate floor and read there, and then subsequently sent to the Education Committee. The first engrossment is how, after having deferred the bill in the Education Committee, members, people that were either lobbyists or elected officials expressed concerns or things that they liked about the bill, and it was subsequently changed before it was voted out of committees because of that give and take of things that people liked and those things that people were concerned about. A bill matures, sometimes it improves altogether, other times it just simply changes because of political concerns that people have depending on where they come from. But as an example, if you're interested, one of the things that we can see just by a brief look is that the first section of the bill, in both versions, you'll see that it talks about Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin as being places where kids can participate in concurrent enrollment, which is a type of post-secondary enrollment. And then if you go down to section 2 of the bill, in both its versions, you'll see that the language changes different. It is different in one bill than the other. The one version of it as introduced talks about enrollment priorities and then goes immediately to advertising language saying that post-secondary institutions can talk about things that deal with the benefits of attending PSEO. And if you were to look at the first engrossment of the version of the Senate File 570, you'll see that that version no longer has that language in. Well, let's talk a little bit about why that disappeared. You can see that in the bill as introduced, what's being stricken through there is existing law. So the existing law says that if you are in a school, a high school, that has less than 700 students in grades 10, 11, and 12, that the folks, the higher ed institutions that offer PSEO, can't advertise the fact that you would save money by participating in PSEO. If, on the other hand, you are in a school that is larger than this, then your University of Minnesota and your other colleges can talk about the fact that you, by participating in PSEO, would save money. So it's a little bit of what we call a gag rule the idea was that districts that are quite small, that have a concern about trying to keep their high schools operating with enough revenue. Some legislators thought that if you allow kids to participate in PSEO, they'll leave the school setting, they'll go on to college. Some of the money goes with those students to the college setting, and then subsequently the district, the high school, has less money. So in an effort to protect the revenue of the high schools, they put in place this gag rule language simply saying that higher ed institutions cannot advertise the fact that you save money by participating in PSEO if your district has, or if your high school has less than 700 students or more in grades 10, 11, and 12. The Senate Bill 570 is seeking to strike, as introduced, was seeking to strike that gag rule. We didn't see the difference, why it is that some districts and students can learn about cost savings available in PSEO, while other smaller districts and students in those smaller districts cannot learn about the cost savings inherent in participating in PSEO. So we initially struck that language as introduced, but you'll see that in order to get the bill from the committee with the votes that we needed from membership, that provision disappeared. That's one small example of how the bill changed and why. And as you look through the bill, you'll see that there are some other changes too. I don't want to belabor the point there, but just to give you an introduction to the idea that lobbying and the expression of concern that members of the citizenry and also other organizations have, those concerns make an impact here at the legislature.
At this time, we'll open up for questions for Senator Nelson or any of the testifiers. So those of you wishing to ask questions, please raise your hand. Ms. Grace Greason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a youth council, we talked about how some opposition to this bill has arisen because funding for PSEO is diverted away from public schools. And I was wondering, is there any type of opposition unrelated to funding for public schools?
Yeah, there is. If you'll turn just a little bit further into the respective bills, you'll see there's some language in one version that deals with giving students equitable treatment for credits, no matter how they're earned. Let me see here, I'm looking for, here it is. On Senate Bill 570 as introduced, if you turn to the fourth page, you'll see that lines 4.23, it talks about, so some high schools have a policy of weighting courses. So if you take one type of course versus another type of course, you get a 3, say you get a B, you get a 3.0 in the courses, but the district says that one course maybe was harder, and so they'll give it weighting. One was an art course and another one was algebra, or rather the district thinks because it was offered by a different entity that it's harder. Say for instance, one was an AP Algebra 2 course, and the other one you took through your local MYC campus. Thank you. I was going to go tech, and I knew that wasn't right. Your MYC campus, Minnesota State campus, your high school might say, well, you know, AP, IB, we know those are pretty rigorous, and we're not so sure that the MYC campus is all that rigorous. Therefore, we'll weight the AP, IB more heavily. And sometimes the districts wait for other reasons than that. Sometimes the district controls more of the money that is generated through the weighting. So for instance, your AP IB courses, more of that revenue stays with the school than does when you take a PSEO course. But there are various reasons why weighting might happen, and usually what happens is the district wants to incent what they're offering, what they control, because they offer it and they control it, rather than those things that they don't offer and don't control. So here's a provision that also disappeared as the bill evolved, and it would have essentially said that if there's a dispute between the district and the pupil regarding the weighting, a grade point average in a particular course, the pupil may appeal the board's decision to the commissioner. The commissioner's decision regarding grade point average is final. The reason that was taken out of there was some concern coming from districts, but mostly the concern came from the Minnesota Department of Education, who said, yeah, we don't know that we really have the ability to determine in a fail-proof manner why and when a school grade course should be weighted or not. So that's didn't necessarily deal with financing. That was just a matter of well, there's a number of matters, but certainly it was MDE's concern about their role in that. It was one of those things.
And that's an example of an idea that came directly from students. I've been meeting with students for the last year and a half around the state of Minnesota, and a number of those students said it's not fair that students get an extra weight in their grade point average if they take an AP or a college in the schools or an IB course, but the kids who take PSEO don't. And we've had a lot of discussion about that, and we've had a lot of discussion over a number of years about that. So I think that's an issue that's going to continue to come up. Our point of view is that the courses ought to be weighted equally. And if you're going to get extra weight for an AP or an IB, that's okay. Then you ought to get extra weight for PSEO. On the issue of the dollars, my view, not shared by everyone, my view is that the legislature decided 32 years ago, when it adopted PSEO, that the legislature allocates money for your education, not necessarily for the preservation of a particular institution. You have a gentleman over here from MTS, Minnesota Transitions, right, in Minneapolis. So the legislature decided in 1991, first state in the country to do this, that young people would have the option in this state to go to a district public school or a charter public school. And the dollars would follow the students. So this gentleman's going to a charter public school in Minneapolis, which means you live in Minneapolis or somewhere else. So probably somewhere between $9,000 and $11,000 is following this gentleman to the charter school. Anybody in this room use open enrollment? Okay. Anybody in this room do PSEO? Okay, so about a third of the people are raising their hands. So what that means is that the dollars are following you. And that was a decision the legislature made in 1985. And the legislature has again and again and again, it's reiterated that decision. There's still some people who disagree with that, but the legislature, Republicans and Democrats, have said over and over again, we believe in that principle.
Ms. Garrett, Tiffany?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you say the funding follows the students. So when I take PSEO, I still have a class at the high school, and then I take all of my actual core classes at the college. Does the funding get split up? So like part of it goes to the high school and the rest goes to the college?
Exactly right.
Mr. Bryan?
I'm sorry, Senator, are you able to hear any of these questions, or should we repeat the questions?
I can hear the question, but the answer is just a little bit, I guess the technology is not quite as good as we had hoped. But what I would say regarding the funding, in Minnesota, money follows the student. That is a general principle that money follows the student. In the case of post-secondary enrollment options, the money follows the student to the college that they are choosing to access and get both high school and college credit at the same time. However, there's a portion of that funding that stays back at the high school because that student who is taking PSEO is also a high school student who will need the access of the high school counselors and all of those type of things regarding preparing for graduation. So a portion of the funding, I think it's about 15%, stays back at the high school even though the student is no longer at the high school.
We have about time for one more question. Brian, did you still have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to know why you feel that this is necessary to be implemented.
Why do I feel this is a necessary bill to be implemented? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yes. I believe that this is necessary because, first of all, the data is very rich and replete that shows that students who take some form of dual credit, whether it be college in the schools or concurrent enrollment or post-secondary enrollment options or advanced placement or international baccalaureate courses. These students do better. More of them graduate from high school, more of them go to college, more of them graduate from college in a shorter amount of time with higher GPAs and lower student debt. Those are all things that we should strive for. And what's a little counterintuitive to that is our students who are most at risk actually have the greatest benefits. And so as long as a student is able to take those college courses, I believe we should do all that we can to support the student. Even though I'm a former public school teacher, my dad was a principal, my mom was a special education teacher, I am convinced, as I believe most Minnesotans are, that our focus, when we're talking about education, our focus must be upon the student. It must be the needs of the student come first. And then we should look at how it is as a state, within the state's role, how can we ensure that every student is getting the best education for them that is possible. And this bill was really came out of listening to students who were having issues with what they thought might be unfair grading systems, or the schools who were having a hard time finding colleges that would offer that concurrent enrollment piece in the high school, or students who were taking post-secondary enrollment options, but lo and behold, they found out that their school would not allow them to even access the school internet to access the post-secondary enrollment online courses. So this bill really came out of research, data-driven results that focus on student success, and then the experiences that students are having with dual enrollments and the experiences that the high schools are having in getting colleges on board. And that's really how a lot of legislation starts. It's really, most legislation is looking at how can we improve, but whatever the situation is, how can we make it better? And a lot of times it starts out as a problem. People have experienced problems, and then we look at ways to overcome those problems and have better outcomes and results for all. But as you saw today, the bill that was introduced is not the shape of the bill as it is now. And that is what happens in the legislative process. It's very deliberative, and people come and they share things with you that you never knew before, or that you were unaware of, or they totally have different points of view. And at some point you have to negotiate, make sure that the bill that you have, it does some of the good that you wanted it to do. It might not do everything, but I firmly believe that a half a loaf is better than none. So if we can move the ball down the field a little bit and make things better, solve this problem a little bit, or have better opportunities and outcomes for students, then that is what we should do. We can always come back another year and pick up where we left off. But it's better to do something rather than sacrificing the good for the perfect that you cannot attain.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, going to close discussion and motion that Senate File 570 be recommended to pass.